bought 3, smashed them together, and then won a £30 million 10-year contract with the local authority. What have I been doing for the last 10 years? Because this is so much easier. Do the system, it just works. It has been a fun adventure, and I have certainly applied all of the techniques and skills from the mastermind. I added more hours and more volume and more revenue and profit onto my business in a week than that 12-month attempt at organic growth.
Yeah, about 800 to 2 minutes at 40%.
Yeah, in one deal for no money down and paid out over 2.5 years. And I just went, why would I not do more of this?
And why didn't you discover it 10 years earlier?
It is a case you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
If you think that's how business is done and you do the grind and you do the startup, that's what you do. And that was in September, and in December, 2 days before Christmas, a larger corporate in our sector went into administration. In fact, they were shut down by the regulator. And so they had branches all over the country, one of which was in the location where I'd done this acquisition. And the local authority just said, do you want their branch, their contracts and their staff? Can you solve the problem over Christmas, which is obviously a very key timing? And I went, yep, we can do that. So I integrated that, worked all the hours through Christmas, and that added another £900,000 of turnover 3 months after the first acquisition. Very stressful, didn't drop the ball, did a good job. They recognised that we'd done a good job in catching a falling knife, and when one of the neighbouring local authorities also had a contract handback, they put in a good word for us, and we got that contract with a new branch, another 60 staff, and about another £800,000 of turnover in March. So in the space of just under 6 months, I'd doubled the size of our business, more than doubled the size of our business, through 1 paid for and 2 free acquisitions. And I did God knows how many miles up and down the motorway, because I was the integration guy, I was the IT guy, I was the chief exec, I was the HR director, So I thought I'd better go and find out how to do this properly. And up and down the motorway, I discovered Jonathan's podcast and started at episode 1 and just listened for hours and hours and hours on the motorway. It was like the scales had been peeled from my eyes. It was just like, what have I been doing for the last 10 years? Because this is so much easier. Yes, there's integration stress, and yes, there's cash flow to be managed and all those sorts of things, but the reality is it was just transformational. So I signed up to one of the one-day intro sessions in London, and on the day I signed up for the mastermind group, and that's when I started to put some structure to what we were doing, which was actively look for targets.
So up to that point, it had been a bit instinctive, a bit sort of opportunistic, bit of luck in there.
Yeah.
So you said, okay, if we're going to do this, let's do it properly. Let's have a structure. Let's have a system, a process to follow.
The mastermind group was fantastic in terms of content, but I've also found over the last 4 years is you learn as much from the other people around you doing the deals and learning the lessons on hiring management or fundraising or all the different aspects. It's not just a theory, it's about taking 10 or 20 other people's experiences and whilst I'd say for the first couple of deals stick to the system rigidly because it works, your sector is going to be slightly different than mine, your approach is going to be different because your background. I had the advantage of speaking 10 years of domiciliary care with vendors, and I'm got a few grey hairs, so I can talk about retirement planning for them. Somebody else might have to have a different spin on the system, but stick to the system with your own flourishes. But learning from other people on the mastermind group allowed me to do 14 more acquisitions in the next 3 years following that. So I went on a bit of a frenzy, buying some distressed, some very healthy, ranging from $500,000 of turnover, which I could bolt onto an existing location. I found that you can get money in these deals from 2 methods. One is a multiple arbitrage. So I'd generally be buying these businesses at between 2.5 to 3.5 times EBITDA. We eventually sold at 5.5, so you get the uplift just by being part of a bigger group, but also forced margin improvement. I'll give you an example. On the Isle of Wight, I bought 3 small companies, all on the Isle of Wight, all doing about £700,000 of turnover. Everyone had an office, every one of those had a manager, every one of those had a care coordinator, they all had their own IT systems. I bought 3, smashed them together, and then won a £30 million 10-year contract with the local authority, which is now worth more than that, and the margin more than doubled by doing that scale efficiency of bringing things together. So you get the uplift in margin as well as the multiple arbitrage.
The efficiencies of integration and consolidation.
So we ended up by the middle of last year with 12 branches, and I had 2 more at heads of terms. So ending up with 14 locations.
Buying a business is just so rewarding, and I put together a free training showing you exactly how I do it. If you look in the video description below this video, there is a link. You click the link, you're taken through to the training, watch the training, and I'll show you exactly how to buy a business successfully.
So I ended up with a distressed acquisition up in Oldham in Manchester. It was going to be shut down by HMRC. I did a quick £1 deal. It was losing £20,000 a month, and by putting out people, processes and systems, renegotiating a few supplier contracts, we've now got that throwing off about £30,000 a month of branch contribution. So that turnaround worked really well. Again, no credit to me, but mostly to my team. But it's a long way away. So I picked up the phone to one of the big corporates in our sector, who I know are very acquisitive. I said, do you want to buy this branch? And they said, no, one branch doesn't move the needle for us anymore. We're looking for, businesses your size. I went, no, we're not for sale. We've got plans. We're going to go to 50 million. Didn't think anything further. With the 2 acquisitions that were at heads of terms, it would have taken us to 20 million from our original 2 inside that 4 years, which by itself is amazing. But we had plans to take it to 50. So a couple of months before, we went to Boost & Co. and we'd secured a $3.5 million debt facility. Part of that was for working capital, part of that was for acquisition, war chest, and I used a big chunk of it to go back to everybody I'd bought from previously and said, you know that money I owed you, if you want it today, I can give it to you, but you have to take a 15% haircut. And all but one of them did. So I made a nice little sum and refinancing out the vendor finance or the deferred consideration using this facility. The chief exec of this large corporate phoned me up and said, we really want to do a deal. We want to buy the whole lot. And I spoke to my wife and I said, I've got a plan in place, I've got capital, I've got a team, we wanted to go to 50, and then I thought, take some money off the table. So I said yes. The chief exec, because they're doing so many deals, said he wants the deal done in 6 weeks. We got it done in 10 from that conversation.
Which is still remarkable for the sum, for the amount that you did.
I was doing 2 buy-side deals in parallel with the sell-side deal. So that was no sleep. That was 4 a.m. phone calls, to unblock lawyers and contract negotiations because he wanted to get the deal done as much as I did. I put on about 15 kilos just from stress eating and trying to get it done. But we ended up with a £20 million organisation. I kept 3. I kept 2 branches to go again, and the contract was negotiated because he has a view that he might buy me again in 3 years' time.
Yeah.
So I got to keep the brand, I got to keep most of the staff, I got to keep 2 branches of the then 14, 3 million of turnover, he got 17. We got paid 11.1 million the enterprise value plus about $1 million of excess working capital, of which I had to pay back the 3.5 of debt facility. So we ended up with about 8, part of which was paid on day one, part of which we have to run the business through to the end of this year, so a 1-year earnout. And there's a target pool of 3.6 million payable in January if I meet my targets. We're looking like we're going to overshoot that by about 6 million. And I've got one completing on Monday, $500,000 of turnover into the earnout, another one about 600,000 in a week's time. So I sent 2,500 letters out about 6 weeks ago. I've got 42 conversations on the fly at the moment.
Can I just say, so 42 conversations on the go, you've got a deal completing on Monday, and you've been sitting here in the room with us. I hadn't seen you stressed, running around, taking phone calls.
I've taken phone calls.
Have you?
Yeah.
Oh, it hasn't been a noticeable...
Because I've got a great management team.
Exactly.
So
When buying a business, you need a great lawyer on your team. So why not use mine? His name is John Andrews, and his details are on the screen.
I've set up my system so that on the letter there's a QR code and a link. The vendors can automatically look in my diary and find a slot that works for them. I just have to make sure I book out non-available time. It's a 40-minute conversation. I have a 2-page, 40-minute conversation, take some notes. If I like what I'm hearing, I think there's a deal to be done, and I ask them the question. So if we were to find an ideal outcome for you, what would the deal look like?
Well, that sounds like a very familiar...
I used the line and it works.
And it
rather
works,
than just bluntly say, how much do you want? You try and, soften
Exactly,
it.
yeah.
I've got to, just the system works. Just do the system. It just works. If I think there's legs on it, I now basically write up my notes from that 40-minute call. I ask for some financials from them, and I just hand it to the team. They'll do the initial due diligence, they'll come back with a finance report, they'll come back with an operational report on profit margins, operating systems, IT systems they use, and we just say yes or no, and then we'll just sign the deal. And so we can do deals really quickly now.
You've got one multi-million pound payday, there's going to be another. You're not going to skimp on a few letters, right? Or the investment in that time and energy.
But I think the wider point is go for volume. Don't get hung up on one deal. Just move on to the next one. And motivated seller is key. Finding the finance will happen in one shape or form later. And your argument is the banks aren't lending.
And I think in recent years in particular, I've really drilled down on that confidence piece. I've got really good at unlocking that in
self-limiting
people.
beliefs. And I had I had a decent sized organisation with 10 acquisitions. I still didn't have the confidence to, I was okay. I could buy £1 million, bolted in, good systems. I wouldn't have dreamt about going something that was double my size again. Go from 10 to 20 or 20 to 30. I just didn't have.
But
that
when you commented earlier that when you came to our inner circle group the other month.
So I still listen to every podcast that you put out because you learn from other people's experiences as well as the technical content. But I went to the inner circle. And this guy, I think, that's speaking tomorrow, that did a £10 million first deal, raised 9 million. It's just like,
He did, yeah.
How? I couldn't even imagine doing that, even now.
Yeah. And he started off, by the way, on Mastermind, where he didn't know which business to buy, and he looked at all different sectors.